Hi everyone, my name is Summer Dean.
We're Amy and Ella Meek.
My name is Elena Walinga.
I am a climate change communicator, a content creator, and an advocate for sustainable fashion and climate justice.
We're the founders of an environmental charity called Kids Against Plastic.
I come from a community called Sarayaku in the Ecuadorian Amazon. My advocacy has really been about advocating for indigenous people's rights to be respected in our countries.
We're really excited to be speaking to you guys today and to really share some ideas of how we can try and tackle some of these major environmental issues that are facing our planet today.
I think one of the biggest issues that we face today is that we have become so disconnected from nature. And I think that we live our lives and operate in society as if we are completely separate from the natural world, but that really couldn't be further from the truth. And I think that's part of the reason why so many of our societal systems and industries are built to be unsustainable. Environmental injustice is one of the biggest issues that we face in this crisis. And it is always the most poor and marginalized people that face the worst effects of pollution.
I think that when we're talking about environmental issues, we often separate them from the other issues that our communities and our societies are facing. It's so much more than just talking about the environment. It's talking about women's rights. It's talking about indigenous people's rights. We need to start working on all of those to actually achieve, improvement in our societies.
I think that we definitely agree with exactly what you've just been saying, Helena and Summer, and I think one of the things that we sort of forget when we talk about addressing environmental issues is that it's not a question of, oh, should we address climate change, or should we address plastic pollution, or should we address air quality? Almost by treating them as separate issues that we have to address separately, we delay action on some of them as if it's an issue that we've put to the future because this is something we need to address now.
I feel like for so long, especially in the United States, there has been this push to just communicate the data, and people just always say well, if we can just communicate the science, people will just get it. But I really think that storytelling is much more powerful in that it really communicates our emotions in a really raw way.
I think it's also been my own lived experiences that have made people actually feel what I'm talking about and what to realize the issues that we're having in the Amazon and that indigenous people are having. I started all of this. I was pretty young. English is not my first language. Spanish is not my first language. So I had to, in different languages, start to communicate these messages. People will listen when they hear your story and when they when you tell them what is happening. And I feel that's been a really beautiful experience for me, at least.
Yeah, I'd say we agree with the points that you were both making about storytelling, because before the pandemic we found that speaking to people in person was just a really great way of empowering them. Because if you do a talk to, say, 50 people and just 5 of them walk away feeling like they can do something or with a different mindset, then that's a great achievement, and it can also be really empowering for you to have that impact.
But I think that social media has been a really important tool for getting these issues to more people as well, because it's almost been a levelling platform, and there's a really unprecedented number of young people especially who are aware of the issues facing our planet at the moment and are educated and engaged. So I also think that that is a really important part of it as well.
I think there's no wrong way to make your voice heard, and I always tell people to first tap into your own interests and passions, because I really think that there is a spot and a place for everyone in this movement. And if you kind of tap into your own interests to figure out, where you want to be, you won't burn out as quickly, because it's really easy to get burned out when you're fighting for a livable planet. Even something as small as just helping your neighbors, getting involved in local climate organizations, advocating for social justice, because these things are incredibly interconnected, and practicing anti-racism as well.
I think it's talked about a lot in environmental issues about how this is a bigger issue than individuals, and it is companies, it's governments, and it's a wider societal issue than just individuals causing these problems, exactly as someone was saying earlier. But I don't think that's to say that there isn't things that we can do individually, even just starting with getting educated, just listening, reading things, and not just from one newspaper or one person, but actually get a grasp of these issues from a wider scale, from different communities, different countries, not just from one sort of echo chamber of activism, which I think is a really dangerous rabbit hole to fall down.
Yeah, I think the individual changes that we can make is definitely something that shouldn't be underestimated, and instead of getting overwhelmed with how big an issue is or how big of action you think you need to take, it's better to just realise that these small changes in your everyday life do have a big impact, and if everyone was doing the same thing, then we could solve these problems.
Some concrete things that you can do, and especially when it comes to the Amazon, it's really to think about what makes it even possible for these things to happen, and it often comes down to finance, and I think that's something that people don't really want to talk about, but it's really important that we do talk about it. People really have a choice here. Where do we put our money? Where do I want to invest? Do I want to be part of the problem, or do I actually want to push for solving the problem?
And I also think it's important to remember that sustainability and, getting involved in action isn't about being perfect. It's just about doing what you can. And I think sometimes that holds people back from taking action because they just don't even know where to start, or they think that it's just really daunting and they feel like they have to be perfect. But really just starting where you're at and just caring is the best thing that you can do.
A lot of things give me hope. I think I just feel so privileged in the way I was, how I grew up in the Amazon, in a community that is completely isolated from the rest of the world geographically, and when I see the children doing all the things I used to do when I was a child, running around the forest and doing things that our parents did not let us do, but we still did them. It's possible because my people fought for it. It's possible because my community actually kicked the oil companies out, and that gives me hope that work is giving that happiness to those children, and I really want that to continue.
I'd say something that gives me hope is seeing the amount of young people who are taking action against these issues now, because as people who are going to grow up to inherit this problem, young people are the ones who need to start taking action urgently, and to now see the amount of people who are collaborating and taking action against it and educating themselves and on not just the issues but also what they can do is something that is definitely giving me hope for the future.
And also just conversations like this I think are really hopeful, hearing amazing stories like Helena's and Summer's, and just showing that we're no longer going to settle for the reality that we're hurtling towards, and that actually we're working together on this, I think is something that is really hopeful and really empowering for me especially.
It really gives me a lot of comfort knowing that all of the solutions that we need are in nature. We just need to, come together and figure out how to make that happen. And then also something that gives me a lot of hope is just seeing how the conversation has shifted in the United States. We're just now finally getting to get political leaders to understand that climate change is an intersectional problem. And for the longest time, through the years, throughout my activism, we haven't been able to get that message across. And especially in the past year, it has really gained a lot of traction. So just knowing that more and more people are coming onto this movement with that idea in mind, it gives me so much hope.
Thank you guys for watching this conversation. If you want to learn more about Indigenous people, the Amazon, you can check me out at Helena Walinga. I'm also working at a legal fund to support Indigenous women, so you can also check that out if you want to.
If you want to learn more about climate change or sustainable fashion, you can follow me at Climate Diva.
Thank you so much for tuning into our conversation today. We feel like we've learned so much from Helena and from Summer, and so we hope that you have too, and that you've got some action points of how you can go away and fit these issues into your lifestyle. And if you wanted to find out more about what we do, you can find us on @Kids Against Plastic.